So I just got back from my trip to Maryland, and I saw a couple films while I was down there, and one of them that I saw was, of course, the new Star Trek movie, Star Trek Into Darkness. Now I'm just going to stop right now and say that if you do not want to be spoiled, and I mean monstrous, ruinous spoilers, stop watching this video right now, because I am not holding back at all. At all. So if you haven't seen this movie yet and you do not want to be spoiled, you know, hit that watch later button, go see the movie and then come back, or just leave right now. I will wait. Da, da, da. 4, 3, 2, 1. You good? Okay. With that out of the way, Benedict Cumberbatch is Khan. Yup. Not holding anything back. I have never been a huge Star Trek fan. I grew up with Next Generation, but I'll be damned if I can remember a single episode of it now. I never watched the original series. I've never really had an interest to. I was always more of a Star Wars kid growing up, I gotta be honest with you. With that said, I'm familiar enough with the lore now than I was like 3 years ago when I reviewed the first film, or 4 years ago was it? Yeah, it was 4 years ago. I loved the first film of the J.J. Abrams reboot because I feel it's a film that is very accessible to people who have never watched the original Star Trek a day in their life, like myself, and also very accessible to fans of the original Star Trek. I reviewed the film back in 2009, gave it heavy praise, and even named it Film of the Year for 2009. So I was pretty... Well, to be fair, I was kind of mixed because sequels to great things are rarely ever good. But I was surprised that this film was actually very good, very enjoyable, just as well as the first one, I would say. Though it is J.J. Abrams, so I'm not really surprised. Although I do have a couple little nitpicks that I gotta throw in, but I'll get to those. The first one being right at the bat, the whole Jim losing the Enterprise thing. Now, I'm not a stickler because he lost the Enterprise. That's not the big thing. My big thing is, he got it back in about 10 minutes. Like, they made this whole thing about the Enterprise was seen by an indigenous species, and because Jim doesn't follow the rules, he loses the Enterprise, Spock gets reassigned. But then, Benedict Cumberbatch comes in and blows away the entire officers' meeting, killing Pike from the first film and a few others, and Jim is given a recommand of the Enterprise, Spock comes back as first officer, and that entire plot point is rendered completely superfluous. You really didn't even need to have that there. I mean, I guess it's good for the character arcs of the movie to have that there, but in terms of the plot, you could have written something else there, and it probably would have gone about as well. In fact, there were a couple plot points in this movie that kind of just go nowhere. Like, Uhura and Spock are having an argument, which gets rectified in about 5 minutes with a conversation on board a shuttle. Scotty resigns from the Enterprise, but, you know, then he comes back to do favors for Jim, and then eventually comes back on the ship. It's like these little character arcs that are really short and really just kind of go nowhere. That kind of bugged me a little bit. Acting-wise, I don't even need to go into specifics. I said this in the first movie, and I say this again. This cast works phenomenally well together. This is honestly one of the best working casts I've ever seen, especially with one of this size. It's absolutely amazing how well they work together. The big award obviously goes to Simon Pegg as Mr. Scott. He didn't have a whole lot to do in the first film, as he was completely left out of the first 2 acts and only really made an appearance in the 3rd act. But in this film, he is given a much larger role. And really, it's a testament to Simon Pegg, because whenever Scotty said something funny or did something funny, the entire audience was laughing. Like, literally, every little thing Scotty did, there was positive audience reaction. So, take it on that merit. Like, the audience that I was with, at least, absolutely ate him up. One character art thing I didn't like, actually technically 2, but I'm going to say this now. I didn't like the Admiral and his daughter. And I'm going to tell you why. And it's not because of the actors. I actually think the actors did a pretty good job. But I'll tell you why I didn't like them. I've seen these archetypes before. The Admiral who turns out to be a bad guy, and the daughter who kind of rebels against her father and tries to help the good guys. I have seen this archetype so many times I've lost count. It is an archetype as old as time. And this movie does nothing new with it. There aren't any new twists. There aren't any, new things that come out of it. It is textbook, good admiral turns out to be bad guy, and daughter rebels against him. That's it. If you had cut them out of the story completely, or rewrote them into something else, the world would have kept on turning, the plot would have kept on going, and none of them would have missed him. You really could have done anything else. You could have written them into anything else, or just written them out entirely, and nothing would have changed. That's just me, personally. Maybe some people like them. From what I've seen, not a lot of people are fans of them, and I can see why. I just don't think they're useful. I didn't think there was much of a point for them. And then we have Benedict Cumberbatch, and I gotta say, I'm not the biggest Cumberbatch fan in the world, because he has a massive following, mostly of fangirls, but you get what I mean. I think he's a good actor. I like Sherlock. It doesn't really set my world on fire, but it's a decent show to watch. It's not in my top 10 shows, if you get what I mean. I just think it's an okay show, and I think he's a good actor in it. But holy shit, Cumberbatch is terrifying as Khan. Like, every time he has like a major speech or he does something, you could honestly hear a pin drop in that theater. Everyone was just stunned. This is honestly, I made this comparison to Lynn, that this could be for Cumberbatch what the Joker was for Heath Ledger. Overdose on pills and accidentally killing himself aside, and with the mental scarring and all that. But what I mean is, like, this is kind of like his role. He's taking this classic role and he is redefining it into something. Ugh. I mean, I've never seen the original Khan, but from what I hear, he was a kind of a more of an analytical, kind of like smart kind of role. But this one is just smart and scares the crap out of me. Oh my god. One thing I gotta note about Khan is that I've seen some people going on this because, Khan is white in this film, and obviously Khan was played as kind of like an Arabic character in the original. Although, from what I hear, it was an Arabic character played by a Mexican. So, whatever. What I'm going to say about that, I'm not going to get into the whole race issue, but I'm just going to say, if the actor playing the part is good enough, and this goes for any role, not just Khan, but if the actor playing the role is good enough, they could be every color of the rainbow for all I cared, and I would still give them praise. White, black, Arabic, Mexican, it doesn't matter to me. If you're a good actor, and you can make this role yours, I think that's what really matters. Not necessarily what color you are, but how you play the part. And it's kind of funny when he gets that scene where, in the trailer, when he puts his hand on the glass, like towards the end of the trailer. From there, I kind of had the suspicion they were going to kind of go into a bit of a Wrath of Khan kind of route. But I didn't think they were actually going to pull Khan in. Like, I didn't expect that. Now, as I've said, I'm not a Trek fan, but even if you're not a Trek fan, you at least know or are somewhat familiar with Wrath of Khan. Wrath of Khan is considered by many to be the best, most popular sci-fi film of all time. It's just one of those classics that whenever you like talk about classic sci-fi or even classic Star Trek, Wrath of Khan is probably going to get brought up. It's like that one film, you know what I mean? Like, for Star Wars, it would probably be Empire Strikes Back. For Indiana Jones, it's Temple of Doom. And for Star Trek, it's Wrath of Khan. But what they did for this film, and I actually kind of applaud this film this way, is that they kind of did a reverse Wrath of Khan, where Kirk is the one who goes in to fix the reactor, and he's the one who actually ends up dying. Which you might be like, wait, but the whole point of the third movie, Search for Spock, was because Spock could separate his essence with his body, and then they could put it back together in the end. That was the whole point of the Search for Spock. Very true. And they can't do that for Kirk. Very true. Basically what it is, Khan's blood is kind of regenerative, and they kind of inject him with Khan's blood, and that's kind of how that happens. I like how they did this death scene, and I especially love how Chris Pine did it. Because Chris Pine I love as Kirk. Because, Shatner's classic Kirk, the classic Shatner's. Chris Pine is a good actor, though. Shatner's look, let's not sugarcoat. Shatner's not the best actor in the world. Chris Pine, however, is a very good actor. And I think he's very good as Kirk. He kind of gives Kirk the, I guess, the dignity. I don't even know how to say this, really. And so seeing him kind of die like that was very heartbreaking, even though you probably knew he was probably going to be okay, because, well, they can't really kill off Captain Kirk. Although I'm kind of bummed that they didn't go with, like, a search for Kirk for a third movie, but then again, I get, given the biological circumstances, I guess that's not possible. One thing that kind of, I was like, about the death scene is that there wasn't really any memorable lines from it. Like, obviously, Spock had the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, and then live long and prosper. There wasn't really anything like that here. I understand why they didn't do it, but at the same time, I feel like, because at the beginning of the film, Spock does say the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few when they're in Pike's office getting chewed out. So, I kind of would have, they probably could have made Jim say that as kind of like an echo of what Spock had said earlier. I feel like they could have done that and it would have worked really well, but they didn't, so okay, I guess. I do like that they kind of did the hand thing on that, though. But here's another awesome thing, probably the best thing about it. Spock got the yell. You know what yell I'm talking about. The whole Khan yell. Yeah, Spock got that. And this is one of the best changes they made. Because, you know, when Shatner did Khan, like, it's this classic iconic scene, you know, of him, like, go Khan, you know? Like, everybody always remembers that. As they actually probably remember that as that being Shatner's finest acting bit to date. But when Spock yells Khan, it's a completely different effect. When Zachary Quinto just kind of lets go of that Spock demeanor and gets angry and screams Khan's name, you know right then that the gloves are off. You know someone is about to get their ass kicked. The emotion that went into it, the sheer intensity of the role from Spock, of all people, was just, I felt a chill, honestly, go down my spine when he did that. It was so powerful and really kind of amazing, and I'm really kind of glad they went that route. I also really like that they brought Leonard Nimoy back as kind of like a mentor for Spock, kind of, which I think is really cool. Still no Shatner cameo. I don't know if he's still angry that he got kind of jaded from the first film or not. But, again, Leonard Nimoy being back and revealing what happened with Khan in his timeline, but also not giving the details, or at least not on screen, I think really did well. I love that the whole alternate timeline thing, where, you know, because in the first movie they explained that, you know, the villain of that film, I don't remember what the villain's name was, but I remember it was Eric Bana, basically caused this time paradox. And basically, everything that happens in the Star Trek reboot, it mirrors what happened in the original series. It's the same events, but it's different circumstances. For example, Kirk dying instead of Spock. And I like that. I like that it's not just the same. And I love that it's explained in the narrative that this is the same game, but different players in different circumstances. And I think they have done that really well. And I really like it. I mean, Star Trek fans might, you know, old ones might not agree with that, but I personally think they did very well. Overall, though, the Abrams train is keeping on trucking. Star Trek once again proves to be a success. This film is on par with the first one. I would honestly say it was even better this time, because now the actors are familiar with the roles and they're familiar with what's going on, and they honestly add even more to the performance. I mean, Uhura has some really good moments in this movie that she didn't really have in the first film, which was awesome. And yeah, I mean, as an Abrams fan, I obviously love it. But even ignoring that, I just think that they're updating Star Trek in a way so that it is accessible to old fans and new, and maybe even people who were never really fans of Star Trek. And on that note, I think they've done a really good job. Because again, I've never cared about Star Trek, but I really love this reboot, and I love the science behind it, like the you know, alternate timeline and stuff. I think they do really well on it. So I give this movie an A, and I heartily encourage you to go see it. Tune in next time, probably the next couple days, when I also review The Great Gatsby. With that said, I'm out. Pea soup.
If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, a favorite, subscribe to the channel, post it on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Google+, Reddit, something awful, spray paint on buildings, make a flag of it, get it tattooed in your forearm, get it branded into your forehead. This is SickSlickProductions saying keep the spirit of the movies alive.